disdaining violent, helpless words from victim lips, death answered not again. He stood in silence and in darkness wrapped, half seen in cloud appeared the sombre face. Night's dust dark was his matted hair, the ashes of the bow, his forehead sank. bowed his head in scornful cold assent. Uplifting his disastrous voice, he spoke. I yield to his blind father's longing heart, kingdom and power and friends and greatness lost, and royal trapping to his peaceful age. The pallid pomps of man's declining days, the silver decadent glories of life's fall.
Good morning, everyone. Suresh has prepared a little gift for us. As you go out after the class, you will notice that around Sri Aurobindo's statue there are many small cups with portulaca flowers. So these are gifts we can take away and plant them at home. And they spread, they propagate wonderfully, and such brilliant colors. And the original significance is Sri Aurobindo's compassion. But I think the variety that we have is not the double version, it's the simple one. But they're still very, very beautiful. So anybody who would like to take a few.
And somebody told me the other day that we can eat it, and I have it in salad, they are delicious. Yeah, Suresh told me that you can eat it, and I'm doing it. They were great.
They like full sun, the flowers.
That's what we see, how they fly. They thrive in the full sun. We're reading in Book 10, Canto 2. We had just started this canto, the gospel of death and the vanity of the ideal. Death has been showing to Savitri the dream twilight of the ideal. But now he wants to tell her that all those dreamy ideals are vain and useless. That is his message, the gospel of death. He proclaims the vanity of the ideal, which is just, according to him, an appearance. So we're on page 608. And we start reading, I think, at line 54. All here emerges born from nothingness. That's the beginning of death's gospel. Is it?
No, it's correct.
That's where we stay.
Is it Praveen sitting up there at the back?
Yes, I'm Praveen.
Will you read, Praveen? 608, line 54. All here emerges born from nothingness.
All here emerges, born from nothingness. Encircled, it lasts by the emptiness of space, a wide upheld by an unknowing force, then crumbles back into its parent knot. Only the mute alone can forever be. In the alone, there is no room for love. In vain clothe love's perishable night. Open on the immortal's borrowed room, the ideal's glorious feeling. The ideal never yet was here remain, imprisoned in form that glory cannot live. In your body shut, it beats no more. Intangible, remote, forever pure. The sovereign of its brilliant void. Unwillingly it descends earthly air, inhabit a white temple in man's heart. In his heart it shines rejected by his life. immutable, bodiless, beautiful, grand, and dumb. Immobile on its shining throne it sits. Dumb, it receives his offering and his prayer. It has no voice to answer to his call, no feet that move, no hands to take his gifts. Aerial statue of the new ideal. Virgin conception, the bodiless God. Its light stirs man the thinker to create, an earthly semblance of divine peace. Its hued reflection falls upon man's acts. His institutions are its
Cenotaphs.
He signs his dead conventions with his name. His virtues dawn the ideal's sky road, and a nimbus of the outline of his face. He hides their littleness with the divine name.
Thank you. This is a question that our scientists are debating. Where has the universe come from? And one of the theories is that it has just emerged from nothingness, from emptiness. That it comes from emptiness and it will dissolve back into the void, a word that Sri Aurobindo uses very often in the poem. So that is what death is claiming. Everything here, in whichever world, it emerges born from nothingness. If it lasts for a while, it's still encircled by the emptiness of space. That's what's all around, is emptiness. For some time, our worlds, our universe seems to come into existence and remains in existence, upheld by a force which is unconscious, unknowing, without purpose or intention. And then it just crumbles back into its parent naught, its nothingness. And in fact, death says that only the mute alone can ever be. That is the only thing which can really exist. That silent, empty nothingness. And he tells Savitri, in that alone, there's no room for love. He says, you are imagining love and this ideal world that I have shown you. But it's all in vain, it's useless. In vain to clothe love's perishable mud, the perishable mud of which everything material is made. Love also is made out of perishable mud. So what you've been doing, you've woven on the immortal's borrowed loom. You've borrowed from the immortal world a loom. A loom is where we weave cloth or tapestry. No? So he says, you've been weaving the ideal's gorgeous and unfading robe. Like a beautiful tapestry, you've been imagining all these things and presenting them as so beautiful. But the ideal never yet was real made. We can imagine and dream of the ideal, but it was never yet, he says, made real. It's never been manifested in those glorious colors that you imagine it. Imprisoned in form, if your imaginations of the ideal, if they get fixed into a form, that glory cannot live. If it is shut into a body, it can't breathe anymore, its life is gone. The ideal is intangible, we can't touch it, it's remote. Like that, because it's intangible and beyond our reach, it seems forever pure to us. A sovereign in control of its own brilliant emptiness. Unwillingly, it descends into our earthly air to inhabit a wide temple in man's heart. It can come there and respond to human aspirations. It shines, the ideal, an image of the ideal shines in his heart, in our human hearts. But our life rejects that ideal. The ideal is immutable, forever unchanging, bodiless, without any form, beautiful, grand, dumb, silent. It sits on a shining throne, immobile, without moving. It receives our human offerings and prayers, but it doesn't give any response. It remains dumb. It has no voice to answer to our human call and aspiration and prayer. The ideal has no feet that move, no hands to take our gifts, our offerings. It's actually made out of thin air, an aerial statue of the nude idea, the pure idea. It's a virgin conception. It has no parent, and what is conceived is a bodiless God, a God without form. The light of that ideal does stir man, the thinker, to create an earthly semblance of diviner things. Those imaginations inspire us to attempt to reach more beautiful existences, purer, truer existences. And some reflection of that does fall upon the acts of human beings. But our human institutions, the things that we try to create, maybe even succeed in creating, are its cenotaphs. A cenotaph is a memorial to the dead. A memorial to the dead. After the wars, then they erect cenotaphs.
In India, that is not there. In Even the body is not there inside.
There are no bodies, nothing. Yeah.
No, often there is.
It's just a memorial.
Dictionary meaning says
It's a grave basically, but with a dedication usually good to the person who's there.
The memorial.
At least in the home, it is a seminar.
So on the anniversaries of the end of a war, then the officials will come and lay wreaths in front of the cenotaph in memory.
So not only at the end of the war, also as in a local politician, for instance, when you have corporations, wool workers, other carpenters, then for that head they put an extreme. You can see it in Pompeii when you go to the necropolis, the graveyards outside. A lot of examples of cenotaphs. And then usually the ashes of it, when they cremate it, are kept there.
I'm sorry.
The ashes.
They are ashes.
The defunct's ashes, the dead's ashes of the person who passed away. They're kept. And some you can even sit. The right that the town council allows to sit and rest before you enter the city after a long journey. Nowadays you wouldn't be able to sit on a grave. In those days it was not.
So it's the same as tombstones?
Yes, it's a memorial.
The memorial,
Memorial
no?
to the dead. Yeah.
It's the same.
It's kind of a memorial.
Yes.
But here he means they are empty. These institutions are just empty. They don't have anything. He means they are
Right.
dead.
Yes.
Dead. Just empty. Buildings.
Human beings who have great ideals, who conceive of great ideals, they try to live a virtuous life. So they, according to the ideal. But he says that ideal is just like an outer garment made of sky. It doesn't have any substance. A nimbus of the outline of its face. A nimbus is a kind of shining cloud, which perhaps appears sometimes in the sky. We can see it, but it's.
Sorry, where are you now?
I'm at line 84.
Thank you. Nimbus, a nimbus.
A nimbus, yes. A nimbus is actually a special kind of cloud, no? And it may shine, it may be lit up by the sun or by a rainbow. And in art, a nimbus is often shown around the head of a special being, a special person. So, Death is saying, human beings, they do all this, they have all these imaginations, and he hides, we human beings hide the littleness of all these things, the insignificance of these things, by giving them a divine name. But that's not enough to hide how useless they are. Insufficient. That bright pretense is not enough to hide the poverty, the indigence of those things which are of earthly make. They are not divine at all.
Can it be true for some beings who are doing like this? Can it be true for some beings? I mean, some people like this, they can do like this, right? While utilize behind divine name, is it also possible?
I'm not understanding you, Luba, sorry.
I'm saying that is it possible what Death is saying here for some people they are doing exactly like this?
It's like
Yes, I think
it's
so.
good for the
Yeah.
majority.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he said it's all an imagination.
Yeah.
And he's accusing Savitri of doing this. Yeah? That you're just a human being and you've imagined this great love between you and Satyavan.
Yeah.
It's all just a fantasy, an imagination. Yeah.
So in a way he's trying to hide her greatness.
Sorry?
In a way he's trying to hide her greatness, isn't he?
Yes. Yes.
And put her as a normal, ordinary, even below the ordinary kind of person.
Yes, he's saying, he's giving her his message, his gospel. And his gospel is that all your ideals, your ideal love, your ideal courage, all this, it is just an imagination. Empty, useless imagination. We don't have to believe him when he says these things, but this is what he's saying.
That's what makes this whole thing so powerful. Is pretty much everything that Death says is true. It's just true on a certain level, and as she says, it's the truth that slays. But you can totally resonate with. I mean, you listen and listen and listen. It's a really good thing.
Yes, I think that's true. That what we hear from the lips of Death are the things that we human beings believe.
I want to say that I don't know that only in Argentina. Since childhood, I always listen that live your life after it's nothing else. It's a few days. It's a kind of mantra. No? I don't think it's only in Argentina. I want to listen this everywhere. No? Any other thing that you feel that's not true. The only thing that you eat what you enjoy, and after pass away and finish. And what that said for me is what I was listening to all my life. Nothing new.
So that's what he's saying. If we go back to line 88, line 88, yes. Earth only is there, and not some heavenly source. If there is anything like a heaven, like a higher, diviner world, they are veiled, hidden in their own light. If, in fact, there's a truth eternal that's reigning somewhere unknown, it is burning in a tremendous void of God. Again, he comes back to this emptiness. No?
It's because he cannot see beyond it. But he has a hint of it.
He says truth shines far from the falsehoods of the world. How can the heavens come down to your unhappy earth? And how can what is eternal, how can that live in drifting time? That's one of the great experiences that we have, know of how time passes and changes everything. How shall the ideal tread earth's dolorous soil? This earth full of sorrow, where life is only a labor and a hope. A child of matter. This is part of his gospel, is that everything is born from matter, from mud, and is fed by matter. A fire, it is perhaps the ideal, may burn in our hearts and aspirations in a way, but he says it's like a fire that's going out, flaming low in nature's grate. A grate is a place where you can light a fire. A journey's toilsome trudge with death for goal. It's all going nowhere else, only to death. That's the end of all your imaginations.
So Sradavan, this is very interesting, line 97, no? A child of matter and by matter fed. It is the materialist point of view.
Yes, yes. He plays all the parts.
Yes.
When it suits him, he's a materialist.
Yes.
But the only thing he misses is to explain what life is. Because matter is that.
And what matter is exactly.
Right.
That is because he cannot yet see it, because he cannot go to that level yet. He's stuck. He's stuck in the universe.
He's actually lying.
Interesting. No?
So, Tinaka, would you like to read next? I think we're at line 101.
The avatars have lived and died in vain. Vain was the sage's thought, the prophet's words. In vain is seen the shining upward ray. Earth lies unchanged beneath the circling sun. She loves her foe, and no omnipotence her mortal imperfections can erase. Force on man's crooked ignorance, heaven's straight line, or colonize a world of death with thoughts. O traveler in the chariot of the sun, high priestess in thy holy fancy shrine, who with a magic ritual in earth house worshipest ideal and eternal love. What is this love thy thought has deified? This sacred legend and immortal myth. It is a conscious yearning of thy flesh. It's a glorious burning of thy nerves. A rose of green splendor battling thy mind. A great red rapture and torture of thy heart. A sudden transfiguration of thy days. It passes, and the world is as before. A ravishing edge of sweetness and of pain. A thrill in its yearning makes it seem divine. A golden bridge across the roar of the years. A cord tying me to eternity. And yet how brief and frail. How soon is spent this treasure wasted by loss of man. This happy closeness as of soul to soul. This honey of the body's companionship. This heightened joy, this ecstasy in the veins. This strange illumination of the sense. If Satyavan had lived, love would have died. But Satyavan is dead, and love shall live for a little while in thy sad breast, until his face and body faint on memory's wall, where our bodies, our faces come.
Thank you. He's telling us that this is a characteristic of earth. There, he says the avatars have lived and died in vain, because this is a world of matter, a child of matter, and by matter fed. And the life in the world is just a journey, a difficult journey, a toilsome trudge. We have to drag our way through life with death for goal. That's where you are going. That's where all you human beings are going. And these people, these divine, apparently divine beings have come, they've lived for a while, they've died and their message is forgotten. The thought, the wisdom of the wise man, the voice of the prophet, these are all useless, all in vain. In vain is seen the shining upward way. You might get a glimpse of it, but beneath it, earth lies unchanged beneath the circling sun. Here's our earth. Maybe we get some illumination from the sun, but earth as such loves her fall, this low state. And no omnipotence, no great power can come and change the mortal imperfection of the earth. No power can force on human beings, on man's crooked ignorance. They can't force that to follow the straight line of heaven. These words are reminding me of a drawing that the mother has made. Perhaps some of you will remember it too. She wanted to explain to a child the difference between the ordinary human life and the life that leads to the divine. And so she started with I think a circle here at the bottom, and then she showed this zigzag line. This is the way that human beings go, from here to there, to there, to there, to there, to there. And it all takes a very long time. Perhaps at the end they might reach the fulfillment.
The garden of progress in the Matrimony is that.
Can't hear you, dear.
The garden of progress in the Matrimony
Yes.
is that.
They-
have
they-
a line and then the other one.
Oh, I see.
Till then,
Yeah. So that zigzag line, man's crooked ignorance, it's leading us like this, no? And there's heaven's straight line. Death says there's no hope for you, you can't follow that. But perhaps you can. If Mother drew it and said, this is the way you can go to a child, she gives him that aim that you don't have to follow this crooked line. And he says, no power, no great power can colonize a world of death with gods. Not possible. Gods are immortal. You can't bring them down here onto the earth. Shall we go on from there? Mita, would you like to read?
136. 136.
136.
Yes, when love breaks suddenly, that's where we are, no?
109.
936.
136.
When love breaks suddenly into the life, at first, man steps into a world of the sun. In his passion, he feels his heavenly element, but only a fine, sunlit patch of earth, the marvelous aspect too of heaven's outburst. The snake is there, and the worm in the heart of the rose. A word, a moment's act can slay the god. Precarious is his immortality. He has 1,000 ways to suffer and die. Love cannot live by heavenly food alone. Only on sap of earth can it survive. For thy passion was a sensual want refined, a hunger of the body and the heart. Thy want can tire and cease or turn elsewhere. All love may meet a dire and pitiless end by bitter treason or wrought with cruel wounds. Separate, or thy unsatisfied way to others depart when first love's joy lives stripped and slain. A dull indifference replaces fire, or an enduring habit imitates love. An outward and uneasy union lasts, or the routine of a life's compromise, where once the seed of oneness had been cast into a semblance of spiritual life by a divine adventure of heavenly powers. Two strive, constant associates without joy, two egos straining in a single leash, two minds divided by their giant hearts, two spirits disjoined, forever separate. Thus is the ideal falsified in man's world, trivial or somber. Disillusion comes, life's harsh reality stares at the soul. Heaven's hour adjourned, leaves into bodiless time. Death saves me from this and saves Savitri. He now is safe, delivered from himself. He travels to silence and felicity. Call him not back to the treacheries of earth and the poor petty life of animal mind. In my vast tranquil spaces, let me sleep. In harmony with the mighty hush of death, where love lies slumbering on the breast of peace.
Yes, thank you. So we can recognize these arguments. There's even something quite convincing about them. Anybody would like to ask anything about this passage?
He speaks about the two, Sradhavan. Two strive.
Yes.
Two egos, two minds, two spirits. The duality, no?
Yes. So first of all, he says, when love breaks suddenly into the life, at first man steps into a world of the sun. Actually, in the description of Savitri's meeting with Satyavan at the end of Book 5, Canto 3, there's such a wonderful description Sri Aurobindo has given about what love truly is. So wonderful. And that is what is embodied in the love of Savitri and Satyavan. But this is Death's description of how it is. At first, man steps into a world of the sun. Everything is lit up and beautiful. No? In his passion, he feels his heavenly element more than human. But it's only a fine sunlit patch of earth that's taken on the likeness of heaven, of heaven's outburst. And on that little patch, the snake is there with its poison, and the worm in the heart of the rose to spoil the beautiful flower. And even a small thing can destroy the love of this imaginary God. A word, a moment's act can slay the God. His immortality is precarious, it can be easily lost, destroyed. Man has, or this God of love, has 1,000 ways to suffer and die. Love cannot live by heavenly food alone. Only on sap of earth can it survive. This is what death is saying, no? That it needs the juices of the earth, because what you call love, your passion, was just a sensual want, a sensual want, a desire or longing of the senses, a hunger of the body and the heart. So because it's like that, your want, your desire can get tired or cease, or it can turn elsewhere to other objects. Or it can happen that love may meet a dire and pitiless end by bitter treason. It can be betrayed. Even a true love given, it can suffer as a very sad and tragic end if it is betrayed by the object. Wrath, anger with cruel wounds can separate the lovers. Or your will is, your desire, your longing is unsatisfied, and it turns elsewhere to look for its satisfaction. The unsatisfied will departs to others when first love's joy has been stripped and slain, it's been exhausted and killed. Then this dull indifference replaces the fire, the intensity of love. Or perhaps what more usually happens is that an endearing habit imitates love. Two are just used to being together, they're fond of each other. The routine, an outward and uneasy union lasts, or the routine of a life's compromise. Perhaps the seed of true oneness had been sown into a semblance, into an appearance of spiritual ground by a divine adventure of heavenly powers. But now, what happens? The two beings struggle, quarrel. Constant associates, always together, but without the joy of being together. Two egos straining in a single leash, if you've got two dogs that want to go in different directions. Two minds, instead of coming together, they're divided by their jarring thoughts, their thoughts which don't match, which clash. Two spirits disjoined, separated, forever separated. So this, says death, is the way that the ideal gets falsified in the human world. Whether it's in trivial ways or dark ways, one way or another, disillusion comes. We get dissatisfied and disappointed. Life's harsh reality, the way things really are, stares at the soul. Then that heavenly hour flees, runs away into bodiless time. So he's telling her, be happy. Death is saving you from this. I, death, am saving you from this. And I'm saving Satyavan. He's safe now, delivered, set free from himself. Now he can travel to silence and felicity, to happiness, maybe even bliss. So don't call him back. Don't try to get him back now to all these treacheries, these letdowns that earth gives us. Don't call him back to the poor, petty life of animal man. Let him sleep in my vast, tranquil spaces. This is the allure of death. There I will be at peace, in harmony with the mighty hush of death, where love lies slumbering on the breast of peace. Why do you want to call him back from that?
Most of the time people think death is the relief, great relief.
Is what?
Most of the time people think that death is a great relief, out of all these troubles and difficulties.
Yeah, well, life can be very, very difficult and painful and full of grief and suffering. It is like that. So then...
Yeah, they go do suicide, People do suicide, so they say enough. And they jump. So they do all not just jump, many different ways of doing it.
So he tells her to go back.
But there is the fact that the death mentions two egos.
Yes, that is what causes the strife, yes.
Yeah, but if he would see humans just as egos, he wouldn't need to say that. When he says ego, he knows there is something else.
The yin-yang, we call it. It's a constant, you see the movement.
If you read the opposite of what he's saying, you read the truth. He is denying everything. Within his denials,
he's quite perfect.
He uses truth reason.
Yes. Yes, of course.
It's very intelligently written from Sri Auroville.
Yes.
Exactly the opposite of what Sri Auroville says. But he uses it because a lot of people in their ignorance are not aware of the truth of Sri Auroville. Listen.
Correct.
Also, it's not easy. Also, if you know my name, it's not easy. They are
if you read this passage and you say everything is born out of nothingness, what is cannot be. So it's not nothingness, it's full.
So shall we go back to the top of page 612? This is what he tells her next.
In harmony.
612, I've got.
Yes, that's where we are.
Yes. And so we read the top line, where love lies slumbering on the breast of peace. Now we can read on from there. Ushi, would you read?
Yeah. One moment. Return light.
And go back alone and nothing. And go back alone to thy world. Chastise thy heart with knowledge ungood to see. Thy nature rise into clear living heights. The heavens burn through from unimagined peaks. For when thou givest thy spirit to a dream, soon her necessity with smile be away. Purest delight began and it must end. Though who shall know thy heart now unpersuading?
thy dreaded soul moored in eternal seas, vain and disciples of thy brilliant mind. Renounced, forgetting joy and hope and tears, thy passionate nature in the bosom profound of a happy nothingness and wordless calm, delivered into my mysterious rest. One with my fathomless nihil all forget thy fruitless spirit's waste of force, forget thy very psyche of thy words, forget the joy and the struggle and the pain. The vast spiritual quest this first began, when words broke forth like clusters of fire flowers, and great burning thoughts voyaged through the sky of mind, and time its aeons sprawled in all those the lasts, and soul emerged into morality.
Mortality.
Into mortality.
Thank you. It's a very interesting passage, I think. It says how you have to go back alone to your frail world, which is not solid and reliable. You have to chastise, that actually means to punish, but it can mean to purify, yes. And take off your mask, what's making you blind. See how your nature can be raised up into clear, living heights, and you can gain the heaven bird's view from unimagined peaks. You can go up so high and see something so clearly and so beautiful. The heaven bird's view from unimagined peaks. That's what I'm offering you, he says. Because if you give your spirit to a dream, soon hard necessity will give you a big blow to wake you up. Even the purest delight has a beginning, and so it must have an end. The next lines are so beautiful, I have difficulty in reading them. Thou too shalt know, thy heart no anchor swinging, thy cradled soul moored in eternal seas. Vain are the cycles of thy brilliant mind. Renounce, forgetting joy and hope and tears, thy passionate nature in the bosom profound of a happy nothingness and wordless calm, delivered into my mysterious rest. One with my fathomless nihil, all forget. Forget thy fruitless spirit's waste of force. Forget the weary circle of thy birth. Forget the joy and the struggle and the pain, the vague spiritual quest which first began when worlds broke forth like clusters of fire flowers, and great burning thoughts voyaged through the sky of mind, and time and its eons crawled across the vast, and souls emerged into mortality.
So he is saying knowledge is more useful to her than the love. In a nutshell, he is saying that if you go to knowledge from the heart, all these things will happen.
And yes, he suggests that she can rise to a higher nature, no? Thy nature raised into clear living heights, then you'll be able to see things as they really are, as the heaven bird sees them, from those unimagined peaks of consciousness. Don't give your spirit to a dream. Don't fall into delusion. Soon, if you do, soon hard necessity will give you a blow and wake you up. Purest delight began, and it must end. But then he says something so tempting. Thou too shalt know, thy heart no anchor swinging, not attached to anything. You will experience that your soul is like in a baby in a cradle, moored. It is connected. It's connected to the eternal seas. Beautiful.
That is why we say that the soul is the gateway, because it's the spark of the one itself.
Yes. Yeah.
Moored with the one.
Yes. Permanently moored.
Anchored.
Yeah.
Mood means
Yes, moored. If you have a sailing boat, then you will look for a harbour where you can tie up your little boat overnight or for a few days. No? That's mooring. But if you are on the high seas, you may not have anywhere where you can moor up your boat. So he's giving a picture like that you will be out in the eternal seas, and then you'll really be moored. Then you'll really be connected. Your soul will be cradled and protected. What's keeping you away from all that is your brilliant mind and your desires and all that. So he's tempting her very cleverly. So let's see how she answers him. Rani, you like to read? That is line 200.
And Savitri replied to the dark tower, "A dangerous music now thou find'st, O death, melting thy speech into harmonious pain, and flutest alluringly to tired hopes, thy falsehoods mingled with sad strains of truth. But I forbid thy voice to slay my soul. My love is not a hunger of the heart. My love is not a craving of the flesh. It came to me from God, to God returns. Even in all that life and man have marred, a whisper of divinity still is heard. A breath is felt from the eternal spheres, allowed by heaven and wonderful to man, a sweet, wild rhythm of passion chants to love. There is a hope in its wild, infinite cry. It rings with callings from forgotten heights, and when its strains are hushed to high-winged souls in their empyrean, its burning breath survives beyond the rapturous core of suns that flame forever pure in skies unseen, a voice of the eternal ecstasy. One day I shall behold my great sweet world, put off the dire disguises of the gods, unveiled from terror and disrobed from sin. Appeased, we shall draw near our mother's face. We shall cast our candid souls upon her lap. Then shall we clasp the ecstasy we chase. Then shall we shudder with the long sought God. Then shall we find heaven's unexpected strain. Not only is there hope for Godhead's pure, the violent and darkened deities leap down from the one breast in rage to find what the white gods had missed. They too are safe. A mother's eyes are on them, and her arms stretched out in love desire her younger sons. One who came, love and lover and beloved, eternal, built himself a wondrous field and wove the measures of a marvelous dance. There in its circles and its magic turns, attracted he arrives, repelled he flees. In the wild, devious promptings of his mind, he tastes the honey of tears and puts off joy repenting, and has laughter and has wrath. And both are broken music of the soul, which seeks out, reconcile its heavenly rhyme. Ever he comes to us across the years, bearing a new sweet face that is the old. His bliss laughs to us, or it calls concealed, like a far-heard, unseen, entrancing flute, from moonlit branches in the throbbing woods, tempting our anguished search and passionate pain. Disguised the lover seeks and draws our souls. He named himself for me, Guru Satyavan, for we were man and woman from the first, the twin souls born from one undying fire. Did he not dawn on me in other stars? How has he through the thickets of the world pursued me like a lion in the night, and come upon me suddenly in the ways, and seized me with his glorious golden leap. Unsatisfied, he yearned for me through time, sometimes with wrath, and sometimes with sweet peace, desiring me since first the world began. He rose like a wild wave out of the floods and dragged me helpless into seas of bliss. Out of my curtain past, his arms arrive. They have touched me like the soft, persuading wind. They have plucked me like glad and trembling flower, and clasped me happily, burned in ruthless flame. I too have found him charmed in lovely forms, and run delighted to his distant voice, and pressed to him past many dreadful bars. If there is yet a happier, greater God, let him first wear the face of Satyavan, and let his soul be one with him I love. So let him seek me that I may desire. For only one heart beats within my breast, and one God sits there throned. Advance, O death, beyond the phantom beauty of this world, for of its citizens I am not one. I cherish God the fire, not God the dream.
Thank you. It's because of lines like this and insights like this that this book 10, all through its cantos, but maybe especially this one, is so very special. And this is surely why the mother chose this book, book 10, to translate. And when she was doing it, she said, I'm not translating it for anybody, it's not for publication or anything like this. But I feel this is the only work of Sri Aurobindo's left that can really teach me something. So that it would give her a new knowledge. And that new knowledge is being so generously shared with us also. Such a profound knowledge. Particularly striking for me is this passage about the violent and darkened deities. They too have leaped down from the one breast, from the breast of the mother. 230. Line 230. The violent and darkened deities leaped down from the one breast. There's only one breast, the breast of the Supreme Divine Mother. And they leaped down from the one breast in rage to find what the white gods had missed, the pure gods. They too are safe, these violent and darkened deities. A mother's eyes are on them, and her arms, stretched out in love, desire her rebel son.
I'm wondering, what is this they can find which the pure deities cannot find?
Yes, Sapra unfortunately asked Mother, what have the white gods missed? And she said, the joy of conversion.
The story of the prodigal son.
So touching.
We lose our ways and then we come back to the mother.
Learn.
I think I'd like to stop there for today. Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.
Then peals a calm, inexorable voice. This is the word from which the yearnings came.
Suresh's offering of flowers. You can take some home.